here we are again for another solid episode of Dexter New Blood, this time episode 7 titled Skin of Her Teeth, which is actually a great title for this episode as everything kind of unfolds based on this dental discovery. And so that's just a bit more like morbid irony there that the Dexter writers love to have in there, and thank you Dexter New Blood writers, keep it up. It's just fun, you know? Okay, so this episode starts off where the last one left us off, with Angela calling Dexter Morgan specifically, not Jim Lindsay, but Dexter Morgan for help. And her way of thinking is that Dexter Morgan's forensics expertise can potentially help her in figuring out what happened to her friend Iris, who died many years ago and whose body she'd just discovered in the cave. So Dexter comes on over and searches the body and everything, and what does he find but a damaged tooth, proving that Iris likely bit her attacker and that she did have an attacker in the first place and that she was murdered. So then the two go on to discuss what they think about the case, and they soon find that they both suspect Kurt. And so then they go over to his creepy motel room and all that stuff, but the point is they both think it's him, proving that we're getting that much closer to a climactic finale. And my observation of this episode is during that conversation where Angela says, "I have a theory." And that just reminded me of every Dexter New Blood fan right now. Like all of the conversations online being like, Harrison is Dokes' son, Harrison is this character's son, all this, just these wild theories that a lot of them don't even make sense and everything. But I kind of love it. It's this fun conversation going on online about this topic that I very much love, and it's just kind of funny. But yeah, Angela being like, "I have a theory." It's like, that is every Dexter fan right now. Anyway, after that, early on in this episode, we see a conversation between Deborah and Dexter as she says that Harrison is drifting a bit closer to Kurt, as we have seen during all the previous episodes. And as we can still see that he is still on that teen angst train. He is mad at everybody. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. He constantly blows Dexter off. He's like, "Yeah, fuck you, Dad. I don't care," and all this stuff. He's just this angry boy at the moment. And, you know, I can kind of understand to an extent, but like, it's also like, come on, man. He's just angry at everybody. And to make matters worse, even Audrey now dismisses him as he tries to approach her at school. And she says that she doesn't really want to talk to him right now because of what he did in the previous episode or two, where he damaged that kid's arm in the wrestling match and like broke the kid's arm. You know, and that's fair enough. I understand why you might not want to associate yourself with him at the moment. But this just isolates Harrison that much more and makes him feel a little more lonely than he already did, making him even more susceptible to Kurt, who is like, you know, seemingly grooming him, trying to recruit him in some sort of deadly way or whatever. Whatever his plans are, the more lonely Harrison feels, the more likely he is to succeed in those plans. We then see a little bit after that, as Harrison goes off to work at Kurt's truck stop, that he's dressing in the clothes that looks a lot like the clothes that Dexter wears when he's killing people. But this is only to clean trucks. Harrison's not actually killing anybody. But it's definitely on purpose that there's that kind of parallel there, that he looks similar. And I just enjoyed that little bit of imagery right there. That was just kind of a fun little thing. Anyway, during Harrison's shift here, a random trucker approaches him with a package, and the trucker instructs him to give this package, which is in the form of an envelope, to Dexter, which he then later does, as we see. And I was kind of calling bullshit, because it's like, what, Harrison didn't look in the envelope? Come on, he would have looked in the envelope. I feel like I would have looked in the envelope, you know? Anyway, a bit later we see that Dexter is opening this envelope, and the contents of it is like this nail or a key, something skinny and metallic. We're not quite sure what it is yet, but it does prove important. But I'll get to that soon. Anyway, backtracking just a little bit back to Harrison's shift at the truck stop, Dexter comes along to visit him just for a bit, and probably to, you know, suss out Kurt a little bit as well. So he has a bit of conversation with Harrison, but he quickly leaves and is like, "Yeah, fuck you, I gotta work," basically. And he just sits there for a sec before Kurt then comes and sits down next to him. And they have this awesome kind of conversation between each other where like the rivalry is clearly growing here, and they both kind of know what each other is up to and everything. And I just really, really enjoyed this little scene. And it very much reminded me a little bit anyway of the scene between him and Miguel Prado in season 3 on the rooftop, where he says, "Oh, fuck you right back." It's a bit less explosive than that, but like they're seeing eye to eye, they're sizing each other up, and I just kind of love that. But this all gets interrupted when Kurt gets arrested by Angela, as Dexter happily munches away at his meal. And I just did kind of love that little last shot of Dexter just enjoying the hell out of this moment. Anyway, Kurt gets taken back to the police station and denies knowing who Iris is at all. He's like, who the hell is Iris? And I'm inclined to believe that he actually doesn't know who she is, or at least doesn't remember who she is, because she meant that little to him, which is, you know, actually more fucked up if you actually think about it. And yeah, so as the police are questioning him about what happened and who Iris is and everything, he's just basically saying, I don't know who this is, I don't remember, what are you talking about? And it's here where my wife pointed out that if I was a murderer, or if I was suspected of murder, that would be me, because I have a terrible memory, and they'd just think it was me anyway. They'd think I was lying, even if it wasn't me. I'd just be like, what happened? Like, Angela tells Kurt that this girl went missing all those years ago and there were flyers all around the town. It was something that everybody knew about it. And my wife's like, yeah, and if it was you, everybody would know about it. Except you, except me, idiot, because I don't pay attention to things and I forget things. I would be a terrible murder suspect. Anyway, I enjoyed this little scene as Angela desperately tries to prove that he's guilty, as he keeps up this happy kind of act. And he's like, look, listen to me, sweetheart, and all this stuff. He's trying to be nice, but in this creepy old man kind of way. He's exactly the type of asshole who would go around calling like women that is belittling sweetheart and everything. And he's like, yeah, like I'm better than everyone. Like that's kind of the way that he called her sweetheart. He was kind of more in a like smart-assy dominant way. And yeah, we can see that Kurt, like, he acts nice, but he's clearly not that nice a guy, and I find it really fascinating. Dex then visits Kurt when he's in jail. He breaks into the jail and whatever, no one knows is there. And what happens during there, another bit of a rival conversation there, much like the cafe one, is that Kurt then cryptically tells him that titanium doesn't melt. And we're like, don't know what the fuck that means. But later, everything comes together when it's revealed that the nail that was in that envelope that Harrison earlier gave to Dexter was actually a piece of like surgical equipment that was part of Matt's body. That was like in his leg after the boat accident that happened before the events of this series, suggesting that Kurt actually found Matt's body, or at least lack thereof, and actually found what was left of it, which were these like surgical screws. And knows, most likely, that it was Dexter who did this. Again, he's sizing him up, he's being his rival, and he's showing him his cards. He's like, look at this is the info I know. What the fuck do you have, man? Like, what are you gonna do about it? And he's got that, like, kind of advantage over him there. Their rivalry is truly surfacing here, and it's just epic. I fucking love it. So yeah, basically, he knew the whole time that Matt was dead, which changes kind of how we're thinking about him in previous episodes. And we're seeing that there is somewhat still a sense of proof, another bit of a loose end that Dexter didn't quite acknowledge when he got rid of Matt's body. And who knows, maybe there's another loose end. There probably isn't. This is probably it. But as we know during those early few episodes, Dexter's gotten sloppy in his murder game. And so yeah, he did leave a few things behind, and this was one of them. Later, Kurt is getting interrogated by the police. This is like the next morning. And his story is basically that he is blaming everything on his dad to Angela. He's like, yeah, his dad took him around and, you know, beat up women and all this stuff. It was like this big sob story about how his dad was abusive and he was scared to death of him and all this stuff. And one of the women that he saw his dad beating up or killing or whatever was supposedly Iris, who he'd witnessed get into his father's truck. As he explains this, we see a flashback going on visually though, and we know that it was actually Kurt who was in that truck, and it was Kurt who interacted with Iris. We know it was him, okay? But, you know, Angela doesn't quite know that, but she does suspect it. It's here in this flashback where Iris announces that Angela was actually her ex-best friend, meaning that they had some sort of falling out just before her death, explaining why Angela feels so responsible for her death and many of the other women who have gone missing since. And I feel really bad for Angela here, and that's a great little bit of depth that we got a little bit more of an insight into. Back to the present day though, Kurt has explained away that it was his dad and whatever. There isn't enough proof at the moment, and he gets away. For now. Okay, and now shifting over to Molly. She suspects Jim Lindsay of spying, stalking, and creeping and listening in on conversations. She's starting to get a little bit creeped out by him. She doesn't think he's necessarily like a criminal or a really bad guy or anything, but she's starting to notice that maybe he's not everything as he seems. Maybe there's something a bit more to him. That's just a little bit of development there. She's not really in this episode very much. And now, nearing the end of the episode, bullies surround Harrison as they are blaming him for shutting down the wrestling season thanks to his actions where he broke that kid's arm. The bullies, or these kids or whatever, are not happy about it, and they surround Harrison, threatening him, and they're gonna like beat him up or whatever. But Harrison then gets out his Trinity-style razor, starts slashing away, cuts some of their arms, or at least their jackets. I'm not exactly sure if he got to the skin or whatever, but yeah. And this all gets broken up though when Dexter finds this happening and stops it all. and the bullies all run away. Harrison then goes on to tell Dexter about his nightmares that he's had all his life, that he has come to realize are actually more memories about his mother's death, which he's freshly been heavily reminded of thanks to Molly Park's podcast. And he starts to just talk to Dexter one-on-one, actually, for a little bit, with a bit of respect. It was kind of nice to see, but we also understand why he hasn't been showing him respect. Dexter fucking abandoned him, so, you know, there's two sides to every story. I'm not just saying, like, fuck Harrison, he should respect his father and whatever. Like, I understand why he's not. It's complicated. We then see, during this little bit of a flashback here, though, as Harrison describes his memories, though, we see that John Lithgow makes a brief appearance as the Trinity Killer. And my wife, who was sitting next to me, who didn't watch the previous series, all of the original Dexter, was like, why is he naked right now? I'm like, that's just what he does. Don't worry about it. Kills and fours is naked. Yeah, it's all this stuff. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He was only in there for like a brief second or whatever. But this makes Harrison kind of realize that is why Dexter might have run off, because he was scared of the killer and whatever. And then he kind of gets angry at him and scurries off again just to fuck off again. And he's like, yeah, Dad, I hate you again. And I understand why, I guess, but it felt a bit cheap to me. Like, it's more angsty baby stuff again, if you ask me. He realizes why Dexter abandoned him, so there is that bit of depth there. But it was like, you're getting somewhere. Keep talking. I want to see your relationship develop instead of you running off once more. But, oh well, I get it. He's an angry little kid, and that's what an angry kid is going to do. And I feel bad for him, so yeah, I understand why. So he runs off, gets picked up by some random car. I don't know if he knows him or whatever, but he leaves and Dexter is left there. And then the very final shot of this episode is somebody is behind Dexter, who then like grabs him from behind and presumably kidnaps him. And the attacker was the trucker that gave the envelope to Harrison earlier. So it's obviously one of Kurt Caldwell's guys. It's like one of his men or whatever, one of the trucker guys. And we can assume that he's going to take him back to Kurt to, I don't know, to kill him or something. I don't know. I'm excited to see what a cliffhanger. Like, what the hell is going to happen next? I don't know. Is Dexter going to die at the very start of the next episode and is not going to be in the other episodes after that? I highly doubt it. But hey, anything could happen, I suppose, except that, I guess, because that's not going to happen, obviously. But I'm excited to see what is going to happen and how Dexter is going to weasel himself out of this tight situation, as he always does. So yeah, it was a solid episode. I enjoyed it. Not my favorite episode, not my least favorite episode. It was just good. Let me know what you thought and all that stuff, and please do the things, the YouTuber things, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching.